Alright, welcome back for another replay cast, playing as the Dwarves again. So this time we are using Ungrim Ironfist as our Lord. Got Longbeards on the front, one extra squad on the flank. They're going to be going for point 1. Got Rangers backing up the Longbeards, just standard Rangers. Grumbling Guard, which is Longbeards with great weapons, regiments of renown. And then we've got cannons, Goblobbers, and those will basically be paired up artillery, one for anti-large, one for anti-infantry. And I figure because we're facing up against Bretonnia, the Goblobbers will be good against low leadership troops. Because if you're not aware, they have a leadership debuff called Discouraged on their shots. And so it can get some enemies fleeing in situations where normally they may not. So for our opponent, again, they're playing as Bretonnia. And we're on Death Pass, by the way, if you're not familiar with the map. So our opponent is using King Leoncoeur, and he's got a lot of peasants. He's got some men-at-arms, some foot squires, peasant bowmen with pox arrows, and looks like 3 field trebuchets. So with that, we will speed up a little bit on the approach. You can see kind of what I'm going for with positioning, just looking to get a good defensive position on point 2. My opponent was taking his time approaching. I'm not sure if he was trying to get a feel for what kind of artillery I had. Longbeards approaching over on point 1. My opponent's got, looks like some peasants, some foot squires going over point 3. We'll speed up a little bit more. I did have cannons shooting at King Leon. And you can see I'm going to send Ungrim in here to help out with the Longbeards. So part of the reason I brought Ungrim as my Lord was because I figured Bretonnia is going to be having a lot of heavy cavalry that would be a threat to him, and maybe would have a large Lord like this. So Ungrim going in there, Rangers getting some shots off. I did bring Rangers because they have shields, and I figure that sometimes the Bretonnians will bring kind of light archers. I think that they really only have peasant bowmen. I'm not sure if they have any kind of like heavy crossmen type of troops, so I figured that was a good choice of range unit, and I believe they're a little bit cheaper than Quarrelers. So gyrocopters coming in the backfield to threaten the field trebuchets. This is actually my first time using these guys. You see the Goblobbers are firing into the peasant bowmen in the backfield. Might have missed some shots there. My opponent has got some questing knights coming out of the field. These guys are going to be armor piercing, decently armored. You can see Ungrim did a pretty good job fighting King Leon off. I believe he has some kind of heal. Got questing knights charging in over here. I issued attack commands for my rangers to start shooting at the peasant bowmen because they were kind of just sitting in the backfield not doing much. Unfortunately, I ran into the melee here, and these guys ended up getting caught up with the questing knight charge. Point 1 still unoccupied, or at least uncontested, I should say. My Longbeards are just sitting there doing what they can. And Longbeard's taking another charge over here. So 2 squads of questing knights coming in, crashing into my Longbeards. Pretty good choice of cavalry, I would say, having the armor piercing value on these guys. That's really what you need against the dwarves. I'm not sure if there are almost any troops on the dwarf roster other than rangers, and nothing else has really crossed my mind. Maybe rangers and slayers that don't have heavy armor. So Ungrim kind of running around, scrambling, trying to keep an eye on King Leon and on the questing knights that are charging around. You can see the peasants are getting over here to get on top of point 1. Damsel of Life, probably going to be looking to drop some heals. Yep, Regrowth and Earth Blood, so probably looking to heal the expensive knights and their lord. Rangers getting chased off. The cavalry charging in the backfield, and King Leon doing the same, are really giving me a hard time protecting my shooting. Artillery used up about a third of their ammunition, but so far uncontested. You can see the Grumbling Guard are here trying to help out. These guys actually got dealt with way faster than I thought they would have against these cavalry, and my opponent pulling a little bit of trickery on me. I wasn't paying attention to this at the time. He's got some peasant mobs and foot squires that were on point 3 making their way over to my backfield. So I've got a lot of troops fleeing. You can see I'm a little bit ahead in the gold value. Got some more supplies to use. Taking the lead on the victory points as well. King Leon charging in again on Ungrim. Ungrim's going to deal well against him in a one-on-one combat. But my opponent seems like he's doing his best job to do charges and then remove himself from combat so he doesn't take too much damage from Ungrim, and then go elsewhere and have an impact on another part of the field. You see a lot of troops flying around, fleeing around the field, and part of that is the goblobbers firing in and getting the discourage effect on troops. Now my opponent brought in Pegasus Knights. You might have seen I had brought in gyrocopters to get some shots off on the field trebuchets and to try to harass them off the field. I actually forgot about the gyrobomb troops, or the gyrobomb ability and how that works. So I misused it on one of my units and I didn't use it on the other one. And these Pegasus Knights just slam these guys. So gyrocopters off the field, decent amount of value loss, but I'm still ahead on the value trading. Got a squad of Longbeards over here chasing these peasant mobs so they don't get on top of the cannons uncontested. Got some Slayers coming as well because King Leon is charging in. Longbeards with great weapons matching up against the foot squires. I spawned them in to try to protect the goblobbers, and then the Longbeards were brought in. The standard Longbeards were brought in to get these peasants away from the cannons. Slayers coming in again to counter King Leon, and then questing knights charging into my backfield as well. So again, luckily I have a squad of Slayers deployed over there, but my infantry are pretty well beat up. I do have a runesmith coming over here, and now I'm just going to be playing the defend point 2 game. So let's see, what do we have here? Defenders of Fleur-de-Lis, so these are knights errant. So good shields on these guys. Nothing too crazy as far as their damage output against what I've got. You know, these guys don't have significant armor piercing. Yep, less than a third of their armor, or less than a third of their damage is armor piercing. But them getting on top of the Rangers and charging through them is going to be pretty good. Rangers don't have much armor as far as dwarf units go. King Leon going over here to help out against the Longbeards with great weapons. Slayers trying to figure out. Got two groups of cavalry charging around here around the goblobbers. So I've got Slayers trying to figure out which squad to deal with. You can see I was trying to position them on top of the goblobbers. These guys charged in and didn't take too much damage. Slayers, they do have good damage output, but unfortunately the standard variant is not armor piercing, so they're having a little bit of a hard time as far as a damage dealing anti-large unit fighting off these guys. Rear charge coming from the questing knights. Pegasus Knights over here as well, charging on top of the Longbeards and the cannons, and peasant mobs are making a return to the battlefield. You can see on the front line, my infantry presence is pretty whittled down, so still ahead on victory points, still ahead on value trading and victory points. I kind of reversed them there. Runesmith over here helping out Ungrim, but this isn't quite the situation you want to be in as far as using these units to the best of their ability. Ungrim, you really want to have him fighting against a valuable large target, and although I can have him reprioritize and start fighting against the defenders of Fleur-de-Lis, you can see my opponent's doing a pretty good job paying attention to cycle charging and getting these guys out of there. You know, charging into a runesmith and Ungrim is not the best choice for these guys, so either way, Pegasus Knights, King Leon disengaging over here. He probably, you know, realized that having giant Slayers, standard Slayers, I think another squad, maybe it's just Longbeards over here. But either way, 2 squads of Slayers is not something you want to be dealing with those types of troops. Defenders of Fleur-de-Lis start charging around. Looks like they're hawking down some Longbeards over here. Not taking any engagements he doesn't need to, so you know, pretty smart use of the Lord over here. You can see my opponent starting to catch up in the value trading. Ungrim and the Runesmith are still kind of just soaked up inside of this big blob of infantry. It's going to be really hard to get them out of there. Neither of them have too much mass. So they're struggling a little bit. Rangers getting chased down. I brought them on to try to get some shooting in here, but not the best engagement to take. So Slayers charging into infantry like this is not the best. I was trying to get them over here to help get some of the cavalry off of Ungrim and the Runesmith, but unfortunately they got intercepted by all the infantry on the way. Probably should have waited for the Rangers and maybe some more Longbeards to get together. This is one of the things that I'm struggling with as a Dwarfs is dealing with the lack of mobility and taking the engagements in the right way given that lack of mobility. So even in a situation like this, I'm trying to keep the Rangers and the Giant Slayers near each other because the Pegasus Knights are kind of just menacing above. And there you go, they're going in for a rear charge, so now I'm bringing these guys back. Rangers are trying to run through them. And just a lot of cavalry and whatnot causing me problems. So over here, you can see my opponent brought in the Questing Knights to support the defenders of Fleur-de-Lis and charging against my Longbeards. So point one, starting to go a little bit in my opponent's favor just because they got two squads over here. I forget what the capture weight is for cavalry troops as compared to infantry squads. But Ungrim taking a bad beating over here. You see the cycle charging coming in from my opponent. So although the value trading was definitely going my way earlier in the match, the use of the cavalry and the flying cavalry and King Leon from my opponent was pretty good. And so you can see, although I'm ahead in victory points, he's got point 3 well under control, point 2 completely saturated with troops, and point 1 is now going in his favor, and I don't have the ability to get anything over there quickly to help out those Longbeards. So those guys are just getting pummeled, especially by the Questing Knights with their armor-piercing values. In fact, let's take a quick look at that. So, yeah, over 2/3 of their damage is armor-piercing, so that's going to do really well. Giant Slayers and Standard Slayers are starting to get whittled down. Rangers are firing in support. Another squad of Giant Slayers over here just trying to keep these Royal Pegasus Knights off the Ranger troops. You see they took a pretty good amount of damage on that initial charge. Longbeard's looking to get into the scrum as well, but my Lord has been taken out, the Runesmith has been taken out, and you see the value trading just completely swung in their favor. As soon as the battle line has kind of deteriorated, and I didn't kind of realign myself and get things back together in an organized fashion. You know, my Lord and my Runesmith were caught out over here. I had Slayers running around without the support of other troops. My artillery had kind of gotten pushed off. My opponent is just taking full control over the field. You see 21 units on the field versus 8. So at this point, this match is over for me. I am ahead in victory points, but I'm not going to be able to fight on the objectives like this guy is. So I think I end up conceding here. Let's see how long it takes me to try to bring on the cannons and get some shooting done with them. But again, same kind of situation. I wasn't able to protect them, especially at this point in the match, and so I conceded. So well played by my opponent. Let's take a look at the damage values and whatnot. You know, in hindsight, I think I probably should have gone with a much wider build so that the cavalry charging and whatnot was not giving them as much value. I did like Ungrim as a Lord pick here, but the rest of my build probably could have gotten adjusted. I almost wonder if maybe I should have brought Rangers with great weapons, or Quarrelers with great weapons or something like that, so that they could fight the cavalry but still get some shooting off on the lightly armored infantry and archers. So good damage on Ungrim, not so much on the Grumbling Guard. Rock Lobbers and the cannons did alright. Honestly, I think I resummoned the cannons, so they didn't do too great. Longbeards, not too much value on any of them. Rangers didn't do great. Leoncoeur didn't. Slayers did. Slayers did alright. Giant Slayers didn't do great. Gyrocopters, I did a really bad job of keeping an eye on the gyrocopters. I think it's because it's a unit. This is one of those things where you use a unit you're not used to using. Sometimes you forget about them, at least for me personally. And so these guys just got smashed by the Pegasus Knights after they picked up some damage on the field trebuchets. So for my opponent, King Leon did pretty good. Foot Squires did alright. Field trebuchets did pretty well. I forget how much these guys cost. I've not played as Bretonnia, but I feel like I've looked at their roster briefly. Archers did alright. Peasants, you're not even worth looking at. What is this? The Pegasus Knights did pretty well. Questing Knights, you know, you could kind of get a tell that these guys were going to do well throughout the match. Those Questing Knights. So there wasn't a particular shining star outside of the Pegasus Knights, the Questing Knights, and their Lord. But the cavalry play I felt like was pretty good. I throughout the match was really noticing that my opponent was paying a lot of attention to the cavalry micro, the Lord micro, and just well played on his part. So anyways, thanks for watching. Pretty interesting matchup, and I'll see you on the next one.